Hi guys, Dasha here, and you're on my channel about travel and different tips for mind and body well-being. And today I want to talk about the mind side, and particularly the topic which is very close to my own experience. It's how to overcome cultural shock when you're moving the country. And by moving I actually mean not just going and traveling for a couple of weeks, but moving maybe for relocation, let's say for 6 months or 1 year, or maybe you want to migrate the country permanently. And you can't really run from the cultural shock because it's the natural way of adjusting and adapting to the new culture. But of course you can help yourself not to get to any types of depression and to help yourself settle in easier, feel like home, be part of society and the community. So this is what I want to talk to you about today. First of all, let's talk about the stages of the cultural shock. And stage number 1 is honeymoon. Yes, honeymoon. When you feel so happy, energized, you think that this will last forever, all the culture and the people and food, everything seems to be great, and you think that decision to move the country was the best decision you ever made. Actually, if you go for a shorter time traveling, this stage is the only one stage you will go through, because there is not enough time actually to settle in and to live your experience properly. Stage number 2, this is a rejection stage. Could be the most difficult in all your experience of living abroad. Lots of miscommunication, misunderstanding is happening in terms of the language and the gestures or signs that people use. You can get very frustrated and angry. Also, the symptoms of the depression and the homesickness can occur during this stage. Stage number 3 is the adjustment stage. It's when you already feel more familiar, more comfortable with the language, with people, with the culture. You navigate more easily around the city, and also some kind of community is already established. You have some friends or colleagues that you got to know more closer, so you feel like you're settling in. And the final stage is the acceptance stage. It can be after several weeks or months or even years, going through different emotional changes and stages. And actually, acceptance, it doesn't mean that the culture is completely understood. It's more that the person came to a realization that he can function in this society or this culture as it is, that he has all the needed resources and the understanding to completely to feel fully integrated. When I was 22, I moved to Germany, where I spent 2.5 years, and actually, or honestly talking, during those 2.5 years I have never arrived to the acceptance stage. And the hardest part for me was my adjustment, and especially to the new language, because actually I came to the country without any knowledge of German. I've been always only learning English all my school and student years. So new language, and on top of that barrier, actually I got so homesick. I was missing my friends and my family. I didn't know that many people or all my new acquaintances were still on more, let's say, superficial level. So there were some weekends actually when I didn't even want to go out, and I was just sitting in my room and watching some Ukrainian TV shows or some series. And actually, thanks to some of my friends who were almost dragging me out of the apartment just to go out somewhere, I think that at that time I didn't go into any deeper depression and actually started kind of coming out and integrating a bit more. And by the time when I actually started settling in, by the end of the 2nd year living in Bonn in Germany, my contract finished, so I became unemployed and I started looking for a new job. And long story short, this is how I ended up in Australia. So it was my 2nd move. When I was already 25, I moved to Sydney, and my Australian cultural experience or cultural shock time was actually quite going quite more easier comparing to Germany, because actually I don't have a language barrier, or at least I would say that I understood people for 80%, because of course Australian slang and accent can be also quite difficult to understand. But anyway, at least I could communicate to my colleagues. I could do any other basic things like shopping or reading things in the supermarket, etc. So the language side was easier, but the harder part was establishing my own community around myself, because I came to Sydney, I didn't know anyone, not even like a friend of a friend or any relative. I tried actually searching, but I just didn't know anyone there. So everything was new colleagues, new office, new country. And for me personally, because I'm quite introverted and I love staying at home and just reading a book or watching something, it was quite hard just going out there, you know, going to meetups and meeting new people, start establishing new connections, and that takes time. And actually, even saying that at 25 you're still young and can do everything, it's already a little harder, because all your friends that you build through the years, your friendships, they stay somewhere back home, you know, 1,000 miles, kilometers away, and you have to start from zero. So I would say that that was a quite challenging part for me. So are you planning any soon to move the country, maybe go studying abroad or relocating with a job? So here is my 8 tips on how to overcome cultural shock if you're going to live abroad. And the tip number 1, if you already know which country you're going to, start researching before you go in. Researching about the history, about the culture, about traditions. So when you actually move there, it will be much easier for you to understand people, to understand what motivates them and how they live. Tip number 2, start learning the language, because if you will know already some basics when you arrive, of course it would be much easier for you to integrate. And even if it's an English-speaking country, actually there are so many types of varieties of accents and slangs in different English-speaking countries. Try and research and learn some of those words. So tip number 3, integrate into community. And it could be based on your interests or hobbies. Maybe it could be sports or some meetups, but you need to start putting you out there to meet new people, get new acquaintances, so it will be easier for you to establish your new roots and new connections in the new place. And tip number 4, ask where and how. So all the new people that you meet, or maybe colleagues, ask them what is the best, where to go, where to find, maybe where to buy that, where to do manicure, where to do laundry, anything that would be helpful for you again to settle down in the new place. Tip number 5, travel in the country, see the country, new places. And that's actually probably the biggest thing that I regret from my life in Germany, that I was traveling somewhere else outside, going for a weekend in Barcelona, which was also great, but I actually haven't even seen Munich. Tip number 6, stay in touch with your family and friends. And this is one of the most important ones, because you'll be homesick in some point of your time of staying in the new country, and it's very important to keep those connections. And maybe it's good to schedule some Sunday calls, relaxing, just to chat with your family, and you'll definitely feel better. It will bring up your mood and you will not feel that lonely and that you're living that far away. And tip number 7 is keeping the diary. While you're living abroad, it's such a life-changing experience for you, and you can be going through unforgettable or maybe hard times, and actually it's not only it would be interesting to go through your diary later and remember all these memories. For that time, for the present moment, it's good to overcome all the anxieties that you might have going through the cultural shock if you share that on the paper. And tip number 8, and the last one, is be open and accepting to new things and people, because none of us is perfect and we are all coming from different backgrounds and different cultures. So just be present and let yourself explore. And I hope that these tips will be helpful to someone who are just planning to move, or maybe already living abroad for a long time. So if you like the video, please leave your thumb up and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, just write them in the comments below, and I'll see you again in the next videos.